Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and I'll be your host. And today we are talking about how to put your self beliefs to the test with my guest, GW Curtin. Curtin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, show, for having me. It's good
I'm
to
already
be.
having trouble getting through the intro with you, Curtin, because as these viewers are going to find out, you are very funny and you have some very
Uh,
funny stories that you're going to share with us.
the world's a big funny place, so I can't take credit for that. I'm just the delivery boy. Uh,
All
but
right.
yeah,
Well, can
thanks.
you first deliver your background to us? Tell us a bit about your nomad journey.
I'll do the best I can. I guess most importantly, I always tell people I'm not a digital nomad. Uh-oh, kick me out. Maybe I'm an analog nomad, but mostly I travel and work. I work and travel, but I don't do it the same way that a lot of the digital nomads have done it. I don't have one gig that pays for my whole lifestyle. I normally will move to a place, get a normal job sometimes that's based in a location, but then I will travel for work or I will leave that job and then have 3 months off to travel. So it looks like I'm a nomad. I keep popping up in, Cape Town or Shanghai or, somewhere in Brazil, but I'm actually just either working or traveling, but usually not doing both at the same time. So that's a big secret about me. Don't tell anyone else. If you're listening, you should stop listening right now to this podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
He's
But
not a
back,
legit digital nomad as we
yeah,
think of it.
I don't have a
But
car.
hey, there's different ways to do this lifestyle. And I know that you've had some really crazy U-turns along your travels, including, like you mentioned, you travel and work, travel and work. Where did you last work? And where are you now? I think people would find this interesting.
Yeah, so my last proper job was in Ukraine since, wow, I guess March of 2022. Just after the war started, I came to the Ukrainian conflict to support the logistics efforts, getting medicine and food and clothing delivered into the country. And then, yeah, for over a year, I was working with an NGO that was supplying mostly food to the frontline towns affected by the bombings and the actual drone attacks and all that stuff. So that was pretty crazy. I was head of logistics for an NGO all of a sudden, and before the war, I was running my own embroidery custom clothing business in the Netherlands for people with tattoos that want custom shirts made. So it's like a little bit different industry, but I used to work in logistics in East Africa, so brush that off, get the old experience out, and yeah, it was wild hiring and training 75 locals to run a warehouse, an assembly line, getting trucking contracts with local suppliers and shippers, and yeah, it was full on. Change of scenery, change of always wearing different hats, and definitely wearing the boss hat, the logistics hat, in a very serious and kind of dangerous area was a big change compared to what a lot of nomads go through, and it really tested kind of who I thought I was.
Yeah, and I know that's like you have a lot of this background that can really speak to, how to test your own self-beliefs because you've been in so many different situations. Like you said, East Africa. I know you went to Uganda with like 3 days notice. You moved there from China. I don't know if you want to tell that story, but just being in on all these different continents and putting yourself into a brand new life, you really over and over probably question like, okay, who am I now, or what do I really want in life?
Yeah, I'll give the short version. So basically, I built a pretty good life for myself in Shanghai. And it's 2014, and I had lived in North America for quite a while, being from the US. I'd lived in Europe for a few years, and then I'd lived in Asia for a few years at this point in time. And so I felt that, oh, I'm a really, rough guy. I can survive all these, travels. I'm pretty resourceful. And I got a strange opportunity, a little window to move to Uganda in 2014. And I decided to take it, partially because I wanted to really test myself and see, are you the kind of guy who can, travel and, these kinds of places and it doesn't bother you and you get by and the local food, you find a cuisine that you like and you have some favorites and you can learn a new language. Can you really do that? Or are you just, pretending that you do that and you hope nobody notices that maybe you're a fraud, or maybe you haven't really pushed yourself, or you bump into the crocodile hunter someday and you're like, oh, like he's the real deal, I'm the fraud. So I was kind of testing my own image of myself, and I definitely tested it for the years I was in Uganda. But yeah, so that's what I'd like to talk about today, is kind of this, what I would call part two of your worldly journey. Maybe part one is taking the first step, right? Launching yourself into this world, maybe taking your first job overseas, or your first studies in another country or something like that. And then you sort of change your ways, you pick up some new hobbies, and you find yourself maybe after some big events. But then once you kind of develop this new idea of who you think you are, that's what I'd like to talk about, is how do you actually go about testing those new beliefs and then cementing your ideas, like, yes, I can, be very versatile, or no, I actually don't like this uncertainty. I really prefer being in control, knowing my surroundings, etc.
So how can we test ourselves? If let's say we start at the beginning and we're not just changing continents on a whim and seeing how it works out. I know for a lot of people that is terrifying to think of as the first step. So how can we test our self-beliefs as we travel in part two of this journey?
Sure. I would first off stop looking at it from your perspective. Let's use an example. Let's say we're going to probably use two main examples. Let's say one is um, becoming a vegetarian. Let's say, right? You eat some meat and then you want to try being a vegetarian. The other one is, let's say, well, let's pick meditation or mindfulness or something like that. So you want to be more spiritual, or you want to be more in touch with yourself. So you have these ideas that you're going to do these, mindfulness exercises every morning, and you're going to refrain from eating meat or something like that. So instead of looking at it from your journey, like, this is my first time trying out vegetarianism, try to look at it from the opposite side. What about the people who have been doing this for 30 years, right? Where do they eat? Where do they hang out? What do they do? How do they prepare their meals? What about cleaning up afterwards? Like, all the little details from expert vegetarians, let's say. Try to dive into that world, kind of crank it up to 11 on the vegetarianism, and see if it's too much for you, right? So instead of saying, like, oh, I'm going to try this new dish, I found one website that teaches me a few things. No, just dive in. And if you don't know how to find these other super vegetarians, that could be another a whole nother thing. But let's say you do find a restaurant that's highly recommended in the area by other local vegetarians. Just go to that restaurant, twice a day if you have to. Just really overdo it. Right? Get to meet the regular customers there, and just listen to them. Maybe after a week of hanging out with these people, you're fine with the dietary changes, but you really don't like the people. maybe, or maybe you love the people and you say, wow, these people not only are not eating meat, but they have really interesting insight on rock climbing and raising children and all these other things. Who knows? The point is to really dive into it. You're kind of peeking into the future. Like, what would a future of this kind of step in my life look like? What would this be in 5 or 10 years if this became a part of who I really am, as part of my identity? Because if you don't like the people, right? Like if you support a sports team, but you hate the fan base, it's kind of tricky. It's like, well, you could watch the TV in your room by yourself and cheer for your sports team. But it's kind of weird. Whereas if you do like the fan base, you don't maybe really need to like the sport that much, as long as you can go in public and, cheer and wear the jersey and just, be with the fans. So you kind of have to take it all in. And a lot of times when you're making a decision for yourself, you're just focused on the sport and you know nothing about the fan base until you actually go out there and start participating, and you get surrounded by people in a similar situation. So the other example, let's say meditation or mindfulness, right? You could, again, crank it up to 11, go to these retreats where you're dealing with people who've been doing this for decades. Again, ask people about their journeys, ask people, what they're looking for after 10 years of going down this path. Just see if it kind of speaks to you. See if you can handle the dedication, right? Try to do something for an hour every day, like a full hour. Oh, I could do that. Well, okay, well, after 6 minutes, you're looking at your watch. You're like, I got 54 minutes left. Oh my gosh. And if you can't handle it for 1 week, maybe you're fooling yourself, right? That you can do something, like wholesale change in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. So I would just like, overall advice is just push it pretty hard. And because you're traveling, or even if you're not changing continents like you said, but just even if you have a week off, how to spend that week. You could relax, or you could push yourself into one of these areas of your new identity and really test, well, I love animals. Oh, do you? Well, let's go volunteer at the local zoo or whatever. And you're cleaning up animal poop and you're being, attacked by warthogs or something. And you're like, actually, I don't like animals. I just like the warm, fuzzy feeling when a cat licks your face. Like, okay, well, that's different than liking all animals. So yeah, I think there are lots of opportunities that people could dive into that they don't even think about. And they just kind of wallow in this self-uncertainty for years. And I want to put a stop to that. Say, look, if you think you like animals, here are some ways to know. And then afterwards, like, oh, I do love animals. Like, I love helping them when they're injured. I love watching them raise their children. I love keeping them safe when there's danger around. Good. Now that can become something you trust about yourself. You're like, well, when push comes to shove, I know that I'll be there for the animals. Okay. And if you don't, he's like, you know what? I'll take what I can get, but maybe I shouldn't buy a dog when I move to Portugal right away. Maybe I should just get an apartment. If I want to be around animals, I can be a dog walker for other people on certain weeks, but I don't want the full-time responsibility of having an animal while traveling and this and that, because I don't actually like him that much. I tested myself. So that's what I'd like to get people to that point of really knowing themselves instead of this kind of guesswork.
Have you encountered a lot of other nomads that you feel are in this state, and it's been something that you think is, too prevalent, and you want to, why should we push ourselves and test ourselves like this? What if we just kind of like animals and, we like sometimes to pet them, but you know, maybe that is the truth, is we know that much about ourselves already. But why
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
so important to test ourselves, would you say, in our nomad journey?
Well, it doesn't have to be important at all. But for the people that are on this journey for the purpose of trying to discover themselves or trying to make better decisions about their future the next 10 or 20 years, I feel it's really important to get a few things properly, defined. And mm, if there's any hesitation on what your core values are, like, would you buy a house that's on the top of a hill and you have to walk 600 steps every morning, up and down to get to the little village or something? Some people would think it's romantic and, oh, that would be so nice being in nature. It's like, okay, are you like, maybe, do you know yourself well enough to make that purchase? Like, are you going to complain about the 600 steps after 1 week and then you regret your decision? Or are you really this person who doesn't mind having the tranquility and solidarity or solitude of living up on the hill or something like that? But also,
And the
this
exercise.
the exercise. This stems from a bit of a frustration as well from these different nomad groups. People will, let's say there's 200 nomads together, and somebody says, let's go hiking, and 12 people sign up. You assume that those 12 people are good at hiking. They have hiking boots. They're not going to show up in flip-flops. They're not going to complain when, the path gets a bit choppy or something. But then you have these experiences where people are unprepared. People have almost the wrong idea of what hiking is. Like, they walk for 25 minutes and they want to rest. We're like, we can't stop twice an hour. Like, we have a long way to go. We're going to have to hike for a few hours and then maybe stop for, sit down for a bit and then another few hours. And just people seem completely unprepared for this life that they've chosen for themselves. They're like, well, this isn't really what I like doing. I'm like, wow, well, this is hiking. So welcome to hiking. Um, you know,
Got
people
to
that
jump
want to
all
go,
the way in.
yeah, people that like camping, but they don't like the noise at night. I'm like, well, bugs make noise, frogs make noise. You just got to get used to it. Like, if you're gonna sleep outside, this comes with it. Um, so yeah, I'm like, you can choose any reality you want. You can be a chef. You can be, a park ranger. You can do, but if you're a chef, you better get used to the heat in the kitchen. Like, that's part of it. That comes with it. You can't just microwave everything. You're just gonna
Better
be
have a
fire.
strong attention to detail.
Yeah, yeah. Like, did I already salt this? Like, yeah. But yeah. So that's kind of my motivation. And there are a number of kind of weird ways that people don't, uh, maybe they may not expect that you can kind of test yourself. For example, oh, I'm afraid of public speaking. Okay. Do you want to be afraid of public speaking for the rest of your life? Because if you do, then don't change anything. You can just, exist every day. But if you'd like to overcome those fears, or you think, well, I started my own company, I'm the boss now, even though I don't have any employees, I might in the future, and I want to get better at leadership skills and stuff like that, including public speaking. Okay, yeah, you could do the Toastmasters thing, but everyone knows that already. But even starting smaller, right? You can just try to start conversations in public spaces, like on the bus or train. Get through those walls of nervousness of, like, starting a conversation. Will I be rejected? Will they ignore me? Um, join a local improv class where you're forced to say, random silly stuff in front of strangers, and try to get over those little failures, those little roadblocks, so you can hit the bigger ones when it's important, when you're leading your own company. All sorts of little things. Change your appearance, right? If you're about to get a tattoo, that's visible, and you're not sure if you want to be that kind of person, okay,
Like here,
maybe,
right here
yeah,
on
right
the
here.
face.
Maybe start by wearing like an extremely weird hat, like a fluorescent pink hat out in public for a few weeks, and just get used to people looking at you, right? And if you really, really don't like it, then maybe don't get that tattoo that's visible. you know there's different ways you can kind of test out these feelings that you have, because I think all these feelings are very natural, right? Like, oh, maybe I should be a vegetarian. Oh, maybe I should do more meditation. Maybe I should work with animals. Maybe I love children. Maybe I should you know um, be a nanny or something like that, an au pair. Like, we have all these urges that come from within, so let's give them a fair chance. Let's test them out, right? Like, maybe I think I love children, but it's just that one baby that I have experience with. And it turns out the baby is a gem, right? Doesn't cry very often, loves to be picked up, etc. But the other 95% of kids are like, oh, I don't like those kids. Like, it's good to know that before you offer your services, looking after other people's children. So
We're
yeah,
also
I think.
so bombarded. We're so bombarded these days with marketing from all sides. From every time we look at our phone, there's some picture of a adorable baby, and you're like, wait, should I
Mhm.
have children? Most of society tells me I
Yeah.
should. That's, I think, a problem that, I mean, we're ever more marketed to. So how do we really, like, push back what we shouldn't be grabbing onto and then go for what really does suit us? That's hard to discern, and it's getting even harder with things like deep fakes and these, AI people,
And,
shall we say.
and unless you could have a baby, and then when you don't want to be there, you just put a deep fake, and the baby thinks that you're there. Yeah,
Yes.
trick the
That's
kid.
one way to do it.
Um, doesn't work so well with nursing, but maybe just babysit.
Or I can just
Um,
go into a VR room and, have a virtual simulation of being a parent.
yeah,
So
yeah. And that's what I think is kind of coming is, well, it's like an apprenticeship, right? You're not married to the profession. You don't have to go into $100,000 of debt, right, to learn a few skills and then say, oh, I actually don't like it. It's not like university. But an apprenticeship, oh, I want this. Maybe I want to see what it's like to be this person. And so the master shows you, here's how to do the work, but you also see the master's life. Is he some old, tired, sorry looking guy who's just been, beat to the ground by this profession in the last 30 years? Is he still optimistic? Is he smiling? Does he like his job? Do people respect him for doing this job? You get to see all of that as well, which is all part of that world that you're stepping into, right? If you choose this path. And I think that's what we need to be aware of is a lot of folks make decisions behind a screen. Like you said, they're marketed to, they see a picture of a girl on a laptop in a hammock in Indonesia, and they say, yeah, I would love to be in a hammock. Yeah, because you haven't been in a hammock in 3 years. You're missing the experience of being in a hammock once. You don't want to get into a hammock 5 days a week on a laptop and try to type in this awkward position. And every time you have to go to the toilet or get a drink of water, you have to climb out and all this stuff. And you can't trust the public, so you take your laptop with you to the toilet. That's not what you want. That's
I've been
not
there. I've had
the
to protect that
office.
laptop.
Yeah,
And
like
I
people
thought
people
about
don't
The
want that life.
Office, where you don't have to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would, when people are behind these screens making decisions about what kind of future do I want, it's very difficult to actually get a proper taste of what is that life. Like, what would it be like to wake up as a vegetarian? And do I get sick of telling people, like, every single waiter, I have to remind them, don't put the bacon bits, or no, I don't want the extra, whatever, like chicken drizzle stuff. Like, no, maybe you like the food, but you hate talking about the food. So therefore, you're not a vegetarian. So occasionally you'll eat some meat by chance because you're not telling everybody you're a vegetarian. But if it's up to you, you're not going to prepare any meat dishes. Maybe that's the result, right? And it's not because of the animals, it's because you don't like this confrontation with waiters and waitresses, and you don't like bringing it up because you don't like standing out. It's just a personal choice. So it's, that's not the kind of thing you're going to choose from behind a screen. No one's going to choose to compromise what looks like a compromising of values. But after a few months of experience, you may say, oh no, definitely. Like I am not a salesperson. I do not like bargaining and arguing with people. Therefore, I'm not going to take this job, even though it allows me to travel and it gives me what all these bonuses and stuff like that. So
This is
I
one
think you
question
have
I wanted to ask you, like about the timing. So you mentioned meditation before. You said if after a week you can't sit there for an hour, maybe you should stop doing it. Or you just mentioned a couple of months, like trying something, you know. So how do we really know what signals should we be looking for to just decide, okay, this isn't for me. This isn't me. I shouldn't do this. I've tested it and it's not me.
just gut, right? Some people test things for 2 days and that's all they need to make a decision. Other people do stuff for a year, you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
what personal example? So I was surrounded by these volunteers in Ukraine when the war started, and some were from Europe. This is very close, but some had flown in from Australia. Some had come in from Ecuador, and so these people had made big choices, one-way flights. They came all the way to Ukraine. They had no idea who they were going to be helping, no organization, no place to live, no contacts here, but they just showed up and they were like, I got my hands, I'm ready to help. What can I do? And after a couple of days, some volunteers would go home. They're like, oh, it's not for me. I don't like this. I feel awkward. It's strange. I don't speak Ukrainian. I don't speak Russian. It doesn't feel good. And other volunteers stayed over a year and they still weren't sure. Like, I don't know if I'm really helping. I don't know if I feel useful. So, who knows how long it might take you, but you just have to be honest with your intentions and why every day you're doing what you're doing. If you tell yourself, I'm testing out a new lifestyle, and your gut reaction to that is, buddy, we know the answer and this is not it, then you don't have to keep testing it. You've given yourself that answer. But if you wake up and you're like, yeah, maybe I'm a humanitarian, let's keep trying. Let's see how I feel missing my birthday, right? Or like missing my first Christmas without family because I'm doing a humanitarian mission. Let's see how that feels. Because everybody can volunteer when there's nothing else to do, but are you willing to miss, sports match or your favorite band's concert in your hometown? Things like that. So you go through a full year and all of a sudden, all the seasons, you've done them, all the holidays, you've done them. And then if you still feel a certain way, you say, yeah, this is the kind of person I am. Like, I'm willing to do this if it's needed. So I might not need it for 55 years, but when I'm super old and it comes around again, I'll be like, yep, I'm the kind of person who can do this. So I think it's wonderful to get some clarity. Those people who say, I need a yes or no, not a maybe. So this is kind of doing that to yourself. Like, who am I? Am I this? Yes. Am I this? No. Am I this? No, definitely not. The same way with dating, right? The older folks kind of know who they are. They know what they're looking for. And the 20-year-olds are kind of like, whatever, I'm open, maybe, I don't know. Um, it's kind of like that. Like, you want to get to that point in your life where you can trust yourself. When you make a decision, you kind of believe in that decision a lot stronger than you used to when you were younger.
Yeah. And to go back to the digital nomad journey, as we were prepping for this interview, we talked about how we'd both been digital nomads for a while, but we both felt we've kind of come to a point where we've tested it for a while. And, you know, you do feel sometimes that you want to stop. Okay, I want to go back to it later, more constant traveling. Maybe I'm going to put a pause on it for 6 months. It's interesting, like how long, you know, we test ourselves that way. Have I changed? Is my gut just telling me now to stop? Or why has travel changed?
Right.
So it's always interesting, but I think you're bringing up something maybe a lot of people don't do, which is they don't even think about testing themselves. Sometimes they never have that internal conversation, like, why am I doing what I'm doing right now? Should I
Yeah.
keep doing it, and for how long?
And you have, especially with travel, you have to make sure that your identity is built by you and is not built by the others looking at you. Because like right internally, like you just mentioned, I really want to settle down. I want to build a community. I want to go to the same bakery every weekend and know the names of the bakers. You know, I want them to know my favorite cupcake flavor. You know what I mean? Like I want to build this. I want to have children. I want to see them grow up riding bikes in the neighborhood, and that's what I want internally. That's my vision. But if people look at me from the outside, they'll say, "Oh, this guy's been to, 100 countries and he's going to be one of those traveling people." And it's like, "No." Like that's just because I traveled more than you, 15 years ago doesn't mean that I need to continue doing that for the next 3 decades. So you
That
have to be
I will
careful
always be
because
the model, yeah, for
yeah,
others coming behind you. Yeah.
you have to not, if I don't really know who I am, it's so easy to let them just carry me forward into how they see me. Like, oh, we know you love traveling, so we signed you up for the thing in Japan. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I could go to Japan. Yeah, I mean, I've done it before. Yeah, why not? But do I really, really want to go to Japan? And they're like, no, I don't. I want to stay in my community. It's like, well, you need to know that about yourself, or else people are just going to keep pushing you down where they think you should go. So that's what
I think
I'd like to help
another,
other nomads with.
yeah.
Yes.
Have you faced this as well? When I first became a nomad in 2017, this was of course before COVID, and I joined this community of people on the road. I was going to different like famous nomad cities such as Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I got there and I realized, oh, like it seemed most people were entrepreneurs, or that's how they were finding the jobs that kept them going and working from their laptops. At least that's what I perceived. And so I told myself, oh, to fit in with this group, I feel that I need to be an entrepreneur. But
Right,
I
right.
looked I looked internally, and over time I realized I prefer to actually be an employee or helping someone else. And so it took a few years of searching and feeling uncertain if I was doing the right thing, but it's okay. You don't Not everyone has to fit a perceived mold of what you think digital nomads do for their lifestyle as well, for a living.
Yeah, that's a great example. Another one is the beach. A lot of people think you have to like the beach. You just have to. On the rare occasion when there's a beach nearby and the weather is good and you have free time, you're supposed to go to the beach. Like, I don't really like the beach. The sand gets everywhere. Your skin gets burned. There's no comfortable place to kind of operate and be. It's like the beach is okay for 30 minutes, like run into the water, splash around, get out. But I don't want to base my life on the beach. So yeah, when you jump into the nomad world and the other 19 people all want to go to the beach, you're like, well, maybe I'll see you guys tomorrow then, because I'm going to go do something else. You have to know yourself well enough to be able to make these kind of unpopular decisions. Because if you don't, again, you might reject the nomad life, but it's not because you didn't like the nomad life. You didn't like pretending to be an entrepreneur and pretending to like the beach. And you just ended up doing those two things because that's what they wanted you to do. Instead, you could have positioned yourself as an employee, right? And you could have gone to the mountains or to a cafe in the city and not gone to the beach, and you would have enjoyed the nomad experience a lot more. So It's always
Yeah,
good
there's so many
to be
things
able
to
to
think
work on
about.
yourself. Mhm.
Yeah, I also have the big city versus small town argument, and I hear this a lot from nomads, like, oh, I just can't stand a small town, and there's nothing going on. I'm so bored. The big city life, because I can be there as a nomad and stay, is what I should be doing because that's like that to me feels exciting. But there's definitely different camps, like there is for everything that you do. So figure that out and test yourself with that also on your journey.
Yeah, yeah, and let's say you're afraid of a small town because you'd have to rely more on people than on systems, right? Big city, you don't have to talk to anyone. You can just take the bus. Where does the bus go? You can look it up on a map. Where, what time is the bus? Also, you can look it up. But small town, no bus. So how do I get from A to B? Oh, the neighbor will drive you. He has a Jeep. Ooh, now I have to talk to the neighbor in Spanish. It's like, okay, so you need to know, are you the kind of person who is comfortable getting into these, strange conversations, asking for requests? Um, are you the person who's going to apologize 30 times? Like, I'm sorry for asking you, but I'm sorry if it's out of your way. I don't know if you have time for me. I'm sorry. If you don't like that, then maybe small towns aren't for you because you're going to have lots of those conversations. But if you like the
Yeah.
personal touch, if you like getting to know people who aren't affected by the same stuff that you came from in your world, and you love this interaction with some smaller town neighbor, then yeah, then the big city is going to offer you, not these experiences, right? You're going to have mindless drones looking at their phones, relying on systems, and like maybe you should try this small town, right? So again, it's important to know, and I think when you're young, yeah, be open to different stuff, try it, but kind of like don't just let it linger. Like openness is great, but it serves a purpose of allowing you to find stuff that you like, and then you can kind of be more closed-minded and say, no, this is my favorite kind of coffee. I'm going to have one of these and really enjoy it and relax because I know I love the experience of this specific coffee. And that's a
And it's
beautiful thing.
okay that I don't love all the other coffees. Other
Yeah.
people can love them. And
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So this is that kind of step, like I said, phase two, right? Number one, try to find yourself, start the process, get out there. Phase two, this more kind of narrowing down of saying, I've been traveling for 10 years and I've learned this about myself. Um, used to stay in hostels with 8 beds. So cheap, so awesome. You can go to India for like $1. Yeah. And then, you're 40 years old and you're like, I cannot sleep next to people who snore. And you end up paying for the private room at like, 4 times the cost, but you have your peaceful sleep and you're like, yeah, this is
This has been really valuable. I think that people don't really think about a lot of these internal feelings and battles sometimes that they're going through as they move around the world or even sit, in an office thinking about this lifestyle. So before you go, start to think about all this stuff. Like, what do I really like? Just like you said with relationships, what do I really like? What am I really looking for? And
yeah.
you will have to, just like with dating, test some things out and see what really fits. But it's worth the exploration indeed. And thank you for illuminating this for us because you brought this topic to me and I thought, I've never thought about it in that way myself,
Yeah.
although I was actually doing it the whole time.
My friend calls this process how to get old faster because he says as you naturally age, you kind of do this without thinking of it, but it may take you 10 or 20 years to figure out, oh, I don't actually like these kinds of interactions with people. Or, oh, I really, really prefer being in control of my own space or something. And this is for travelers, like, okay, how to get 20 years of wisdom in 6 months. It's like, all right,
Is that what I should actually call this discussion we've had?
getting older
Maybe.
faster. Yeah. How to age quickly.
Oh, well, thank
Uh,
you so much, Curtin, for joining us. It was really interesting to hear all about all these experiences you've had. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before you go?
just my crypto wallet, so you guys can send me some coins. No, no. Anything to share? Just I would say, look, this is very strange times, right? I had my first conversation with a chat bot the other day, one of these advanced, uh, you know, uh, large language learning, whatever they're called, learning model bots. And we had a long discussion about the near future, and things are changing so quickly, right? There are going to be all of these peripheral things that are going to be done by technology, right? Searching for the best restaurant, or what does that even mean? Well, what is best for you? You have to know, you have to add the human element to have this technology serve you, right? And you need to know what the human element is. so so things are
Yeah.
changing so quickly. um it's not good enough just to get recommendations from other people or just do what everyone else is doing. It's going to become more and more important that you really understand your likes, your personality, your dislikes, your triggers, your pet peeves. How to really enjoy yourself is going to become so much more important, and possibly very easy to get if you know yourself. So I would say this is a very worthwhile cause, is to look inwardly and try to really push yourself to experience these images of yourself, and either the pillars will crumble or they will become the foundations of your future self. So good luck.
That is some wise words to end this. And if people want to follow you, where can they go?
I don't like being followed. Um, no, I guess
Hey, fair enough.
I know myself. I'm always looking around. Hey, hey, it's the guy with the Labrador. He's pretending to walk his dog. Gosh, I guess I have the old Instagram, right? At Go Curtin, it's GOCURTIN. I've got a few companies still up and running around, but I guess just, yeah, reach out to me there, and then I'll give you my email. I'm an old email kind of guy. You can write me a letter.
Yeah,
Um,
analog.
yeah,
Going
share
back
my
to some
address.
analog ideas.
Exactly. Just send me a wire. I was like, uh, but yeah, yeah, just go through there, and then we'll get onto a more tolerable and appropriate platform from there. I always feel weird
All
having
right.
doing business or meeting people on Instagram. It's like,
Well, thank you again for joining us, Curtin. We learned a lot
thanks for
today.
having me, Becky. Yeah, I love your kitchen, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, I just got a remodel.
It
I
looks
think it looks
looks
pretty
very
nice.
clean.
Thank you. I'm gonna go make something now.